Thanks, Tim, and thank you everybody for joining in today for the presentation. Just a little bit about me. I've been with Sage for about 18 years, so go back to the good old DOS days of our estimating product, to tell you the truth. So as Tim mentioned, what we're going to be taking a look at is the eTakeoff solution. How can we streamline your process of doing digital takeoff and have that create an estimate from that digital takeoff solution? So increase your productivity, streamline your process, and also minimize your risk. There's some other things that we'll talk about through the process right there. Not gonna do really a PowerPoint today. We're just gonna jump right into the product and start doing a presentation. So once again, thanks for joining in, and we'll go ahead and get started. So the thing that you look at here with the digital solution is in looking at eTakeoff, there's a couple of things that I want to mention right out of the gate. First of all, when you look at this solution, it gives you the capability to read PDFs, the most widely used document file type. Matter of fact, I probably almost say it's 100% as far as distribution of documents. And what this solution will do is give you the capability to read those documents in that native PDF format, which will give you these clean, crisp lines that will make you more accurate as far as your takeoff is concerned. The other thing that you look at is this is a multi-user environment. So if you're a larger company, you have multiple estimators in your pre-construction group there, then they can all be on this same plan set. Matter of fact, the same plan at the same time. I always like to show a quick illustration of what that looks like, just so that you can see that. Done a lot of takeoff here, but I individually did this particular takeoff. Now what I want to do is I want to show just what I've done. So you've got a complete audit trail of who's taken off what within the plan set. So multi-user functionality gives you that capability. Great for collaboration on different plans. You get those larger projects, multiple individuals getting into this at the same time. The other thing is when you look at the back end of the solution, a true database application. Other solutions out there that are competitive with this, they have random flat files that they're placing all over in directories, and that is just a hair-pulling experience for your IT guy, for your systems individual, your department. It's just hard to manage that. This is a true database application. Now, as we jump into the product a little bit here, just to mention, we've got a Microsoft ribbon, most up-to-date Microsoft ribbon that you would see even in our SQL product. And I'm going to kind of point that out to you as well. But really putting the functions right on the toolbar rather than getting into drop-down menus. Now, here's the thing is we want to be able to take these particular things and have them added to a quick access toolbar. A couple reasons why we may want to do that. I go over here into View. I want to take this particular item and put it on my quick access toolbar. Now what we can do is wrap this up. Now you're maximizing the real estate that you have on your primary screen. The other thing is most companies, most individuals that use the solution have multiple monitors they work with. I highly suggest that when you make the transition to a digital takeoff tool, because what we can do is we can place things on other screens. You have more real estate on your primary screen, so on and so forth. Well, during presentations, I like to have this open. Last but not least, when we customize this toolbar, each individual will have their own functions that they'll put on that toolbar, specific to them. But we can take it a little bit further and we can say, I want to set up the shortcut keys, because really we want a system that's going to grow with you. So if you're clicking and clicking and clicking through things, what we want to do is minimize that clicking and get into these shortcut keys on your keyboard that will enact any of these particular functions that you have here. So you can see all the tabs right there. So very quickly, you can customize this to create some efficiency in your workflow. As you've seen on the right and left-hand side, we've got these panels that have a ton of information. We can take them, drag them to those other monitors that I was speaking about. Now, here's the thing that you look at here. This is a trace list. I'll point other things out as we go through the demonstration, but This is a trace list that moves from one project to the next. It's a library that you don't have to build the trace every time that you do a takeoff. Once you get the library started, you're in great shape. So let's go ahead and move this back to where it belongs. Like to have it there. But once again, real estate is a premium when you're looking at that primary screen. So take these control panels, move them wherever you want. So now let's jump in and start looking at doing some takeoff here. Now up here, you're going to see area, count, length, and perimeter. If I hover over anything within eTakeoff, it's going to tell you a little bit about what that particular function will do, and also give you the list of shortcut keys. By the way, if you need a whole list of shortcut keys, then you can go into the help and it'll give you that. But in this case right here, I'm going to do a quick takeoff. Just going to hit these particular sides right here really quickly. And you'll notice over here, if you follow the bouncing cursor, so to speak, is you get point length perimeter area out of every one of your takeoffs. That's default within the system. We're going to take it a little bit further than that, though. So we'll look a little bit further, or we'll take a look at that a little bit further as we get into the demonstration. But we want to increase your speed. So at this case, I don't want to hit 4 clicks. I just want to hit a square. Or if I want to take these particular guys right here and maybe just copy them, move them over here, we can do it. Move that from page to page, however you want to do that. But let's make it easy for you to navigate through the system. As we move down here, let's talk a little bit about creating the traces that I just mentioned. In this case right here, I'm going to go ahead, do a takeoff. By the way, you'll notice I'm just clicking through here. If I want to zoom in, be more accurate, I most definitely can. All I got to do is hit my left mouse key, and we can get even more into that area and be more accurate with that takeoff. Now, in this case right here, we want to create a trace that's going to go over and over and over again. And what we'll be able to utilize it, so in the future, we won't have to create this trace again. We're good to go. So we'll call this covering. And we'll change the look and feel. Let's use something that's fairly nice there. And we'll increase that so we can see it better. And now we're creating this. And this is giving you kind of a good look at what it's going to look like when we're completed. You can chain line and all sorts of fun things right there. Say OK to that. Now you can see we've got this taken off right here. But this pool, well, we don't need a covering for that. We don't need that item. We need to actually take off and do something different with that. So we can do a cutout real quick. Here's something really key. We'll zoom in. And by the way, every time I'm moving around, I'm just using the mouse and the scroll bar. You can see as we go through this, I'm able to get in very accurately with those curves and do it very quickly right there. Curve that off, finish it off, and we're good to go. Now we've made a cutout here. Well, next step is, of course, if we're doing all divisions, right? If we're covering all of the divisions, doing takeoff of all of the elements within this particular project, well, this may be concrete, for instance. It may be something else. So we want to very easily give you the capability to backfill with one of the traces. So here's our library right here. We can open that up, dive in, and let's call it concrete. Very easily, it will go to the contour of those lines and fill that in perfectly for you. So navigating through the system is very easy, very quick, and really, to tell you the truth, very intuitive when you get into the system. I'm going to close that out. Now, there is one thing that I do want to show you here and draw you a highlight too. You'll notice there's an E right here. We'll get into that a little bit further, because what that is a safety net for you and your estimators so that you don't miss anything. And you're probably thinking about this as we go through this presentation here. Of course, we have area, length, perimeter, counts. Well, great. We go out and get a square foot. But what if that is concrete? Well, what about gravel? What about rebar, reinforcement? What about formwork? What about all the things that make up that slab, those specifications that we need to enter? we'll get into that. Let's jump into something here, right here, where kind of change it up just a little bit and do a takeoff of a wall. Now in this case right here, I'm not going to be Mr. Perfect. I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes. But when we look at this, once again, there's the E. That's the warning. I need to enter additional information. So once again, if you follow the cursor over to this panel right here, now we have point length, perimeter area, but we've got additional specifications that we need to take off. So we've got wall height, studs, sheetrock size, so on and so forth. Now, here's the thing, is as far as efficiency is concerned, we want to be able to have this panel somewhere else. Well, we're going to need a pop-up window that will allow us to enter that information. So we've created this pop-up window to go through that, which will travel wherever you go and do these takeoffs here. But before I jump into doing that, let's get to this E. So that E is that alert that's telling me, hey, I'm missing stuff. Darren, you're going to leave money on the table. Well, of course, we don't want to do that. I'm going to right click and also show you something else. When we get in here, this is where all of our takeoffs are being shown right here. You'll notice one thing. This red E exists here as well. So you get into the analytics, you get into the reporting of all of the takeoffs that you've done. Well, it's going to give me a highlighter that says you're missing some information on these couple areas right here. Now, if you start to think about reporting over here, we can do so much within our estimating software, break it down by WBS codes, so on and so forth. So I can massage the information the way that I want. Well, this solution is going to give you the opportunity to actually track all of these particular columns, these particular fields right here, even work breakdown structures if you want to. And it'll allow you to load up those specific ones you want to see over and over again. So my demonstration sort, I'm going to sort it a different way. I want to see all of this information broken down a different way. Or if I go into maybe floor, I want to see it broken out by floor view. So I can see floor 6, floor, so on and so forth. This has the most robust reporting tool within any solution that I've ever seen as far as digital takeoff is concerned. And it's so easy to work with. But let's go back to where I was. We've got this right here. We need to go back to that takeoff and finish off what we're doing. And we just go ahead and hit the sync key, double click, and we go right back to it. Now, before we do that, I'll go ahead and close out this measurement list real quick. So now we're back to the E. Let's go ahead, enter the additional information. Completed. The E goes back to the way it was, and now we know we've got that protection layer that says, hey, I want to be alerted to the situation where I may miss stuff. I mean, we get a million calls a day. We've got meetings, we've got things that we've got to go do. Now taking it a little bit further, and by the way, this should be, for those of you using our estimating system, you're starting to think, okay, we're entering these specifications over here, variables, of course, in the estimating solution, right? Any of those items, any of those assemblies, they all have variables that are basically built into those items and assemblies, right? Well, we're going to get there. But first, let's drag and drop this over here. Let's use that as a takeoff mechanism. Matter of fact, you may say this is going to be a standard wall here, and I'll just say wall type A. And for this project, now that is wall type A. We can drag and drop it out there like I showed you, or we can move this into our what we call our global favorites, where it will travel from one project to the next. Now, the other thing is when I use this as a takeoff mechanism, I go through and do takeoff. One thing that you'll notice is that E is not being represented as red anymore because we have it already pre-filled for you. Maybe this is a pony wall. We'll just go ahead and enter the differences or the change in that spec, and we're good to go. Now, a couple things I will mention is this. If we go through this project and use this takeoff and enter these variables right here, and then let's say the project changes, we have the capability to go into one spot and for every one of those takeoffs, change that specification and that will cascade through all of those takeoffs that you've done. Now, it can be specific to maybe just one plan page. We can do that as well. As a matter of fact, what you can do is if you look in the spec book, you can look in those particular specs and enter those even before you start doing your takeoff and put those defaults in there as well. So there's many modes of operation that you can work with within the system that can streamline the process for you. Oh, and by the way, we have all sorts of notations and everything that you can apply to these particular pages, clouds, hyperlinks, so on and so forth. And here's another thing, is you can, of course, print these pages once you've marked them up, send them out to your guys in the field, and they can be looking through those and say, oh, okay, we've got the covering, and then we've got the concrete in here, so on and so forth. Last but not least, what you'll probably want to do is go in and have that legend available for them so that they can see that and have that available. Print that out, show them the information, we're good to go. So next steps. As we start to get further into this, we looked at the specifications and entering those specs as we go through the takeoff. Well, now let's tie this into our estimating solution. This is a seamless integration that you don't have to manually move these quantities from digital takeoff into our estimating. We can go ahead and set it up so that we can just send them over, cost them out. Well, with that being said, we have a bridge that we can create here. Bridge just basically bridges the gap between the digital takeoff and the estimating world, but it goes so much further than that, and you'll see what I mean. In this case, what we're going to do is we're going to build a bridge, and we'll call this Alliance Presentation. As we go down further here, we've got multiple, I won't talk about, well, I'm going to talk about this briefly. So if you're looking at the Navisworks solution that we have, the integration with Navisworks, which is a demonstration we're going to be doing later this month, is you may work with multiple architects and you need multiple mappings. Well, that gives us the opportunity to save the way that they build their objects. I won't go into that any further. Estimate, we'll call this Alliance Presentation. Now we've got this project, we're ready to go. I just created an estimate within the solution. That kind of gives you an idea of the integration that we have here. Now looking at this, picture your database, the database that you work with within our estimating application. For those of you that maybe aren't using our estimating solution, our database is the foundation for all of the pricing of the items, the labor, the material, the equipment, and give you so much functionality that goes along with that. Well, now this database exists in our digital takeoff so that we can see this and start doing our takeoff right from the digital plans here. And by the way, we've got items and assemblies or work packages. Back in the day, that's what we used to call them, of course. And when we look at this, maybe we get into this takeoff and we say, oh, okay, well, I want to go in and maybe do a takeoff of general conditions. Maybe I'm going to need a project manager. I can go ahead and say, okay, and I can do a takeoff from there. I'm going to take a look at something real quick conceptual. You know, I'm going to do one thing real quickly here. I'm going to start a new one, and I'm going to go through this really quick. I had to, the thing about it is working with Sage, of course, I've got access to a ton of databases. Well, in that situation, I've associated this with the database I didn't want to use. So there we go. There we go. That's the one that I want to use. Now let's get into that item takeoff and do some things. So we're going to get in here and maybe we're going to have a foreman and a project manager that's going to be out on site. Would we actually do any takeoff digitally to enter the 4 weeks? No, of course not. So when you think about this, I just did a takeoff that has nothing to do with the quantification on these plans. Really, if you think about the process here, what we're going to offer an opportunity to do, and it depends upon your workflow, of course, is do all of your takeoff here and just basically use the estimating for its database and as a reporting analytical tool. But go into Assemblies here. Now, when I jump into the Assemblies, we'll dive into concrete and take a look at a couple things. First of all, double click on this, open this up, and what you'll see are the variables associated with this assembly. This is coming from Sage. For some of you that go back a ways as far as I do, you call it Timberline, right? So when we look at this, this is a Sage estimating solution. Down here are all of the items that are going to be associated with the takeoff are quantified by the answers that we put up here. Down here, we're going to have all sorts of WBS codes as well. So take it a step further. Now what I want to do is take one of these slabs and send it over into the estimating system. Now a couple things that you're going to notice here is these are all answered for me. That's because what we have the capability to do is map these variables to the specifications of your takeoff. So right here I can drill through all of these, 4,000, even look at maybe WBS codes in here, created by Elvis Presley, interestingly enough. Sample data, so kind of a funny there. And we've got the base bid alternates. We've got building 222, floor number 6, so on and so forth. Well, all of that is going to be sent over with those particular tags so that we can break them out when we're in estimating. Pretty easy to do. So at this point, let's go ahead and say, okay, send that over to estimating. We just costed that slab out to our estimating system. Well, take it a bit further here is when we get into review mode. Like I said, you guys know this better than I do. You've got meetings, you've got phone calls, we've got lots of stuff that we're doing. I want to know what's been sent to our estimating. Matter of fact, I want to see what's been sent to our estimating. So if you look at the takeoffs here, well, that's hidden now because it's tagged it and tells us it's been sent to the estimating solution. Well, how many times do we get, let's go to my bridge again. How many times do we get an addendum, a change in this particular takeoff? By the way, we have a capability to compare one page to the next. You've got your existing that you've done takeoff on. In comes that new addendum, that change, and we're going to go ahead and compare those two together and tell you the differences, of course. So in this case, though, for demonstration purposes, we'll just make a change to one of these particular slabs or this one that we sent over. Well, in this case right here, for whatever reason, it becomes this. Never know what a customer's going to want, right? So when you look at this, we've got this weird object, this weird slab. If we hit our refresh button here, you'll notice what's changed. It's going to give us a pencil mark right there. That is an indicator that that has changed in some way, shape, or form. It could be a WBS code, and it would still give us that notification. But in this case, what happened was it became a little bit larger. So we've got the area went from that to this. Of course, the perimeter went from this to that as well. So when you look at that's going to alert us to that change and give us the opportunity to update the information. So with just a click of a button, I'm just going to put in changed in demo, let's say. I'm going to put a note in here as well. Because I may be a junior estimator, right? Or I may be an estimator or a junior estimator. When I go through the review process, I want something that's going to click off, trigger, why this happened maybe. So note on why, and I will not bore you with my 30 words per minute typing. There we go. That should be enough. Say OK. Now let's update the estimate. Done. So a solution that will not only give you the flexibility, the agility to work with changes and addendums, but update the estimate right from here. Click a button, boom, sent that over into the estimating system. Now, we've gone through the process. We know that once we've mapped these things, they're always mapped. Well, let's take advantage of that. Let's have a system that learns. So based upon this trace, well, not actually this trace, but this trace over here, it will go out and find every one of these particular slabs that I've taken off. no matter where they are in the plan. So imagine if you have multiple individuals working in the system, they go through and do all of the takeoff in the divisions that they're responsible for. At the end of the day, you go and say, automatic, go out and find everything that they've taken off, and we're just going to go ahead and update the estimate. So with the click of a button, now what we've done is we've generated that in the estimating system. Well, let's go ahead and wander on over to the estimating. Bring that up, minimize this guy right here. Now what you're going to see is you're going to see our estimate here, of course. Now, of course, being an estimator in my own day, I would have combined these and said, okay, let's get those like items. Let's tighten this up. Let's make it look good in here. So all of these items were generated from eTakeoff, and I should expand that just a tad. Ready to go. Now, the other thing is we go into Assemblies here, and we can look at all of those assemblies. Of course, when we look at collapsing all of these, we most definitely can. And there's my changed in demo. Well, let's open that up. Let's review that. We get into the review mode. And what we'll do is, well, let's get rid of this guy first and then get into the review mode. So at this point, well, let's see where we took that. There we go. Just have to get on the right one. Let's get rid of this guy. I don't even know why that's open. So let's right click on this, review this, and now we can see that takeoff right there. We can see all of the takeoffs and have the audit trail behind this. So there's our original pass. There's the second pass that was basically removing the initial pass. And then here's our third pass with the most up-to-date relevant answers to those specifications. And my nice long little note there, note on why this changed. So there's my trigger, of course, why this changed, and be able to talk at least a little bit intelligently about that. The other thing is we jump over here. We look at location. Each one of those particular items were named using a naming convention and put in section 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth. I can expand it all. There's my project manager, and there's some other things that we can move into those sections very quickly. The other thing is I showed building, I think it was 222. I want to take advantage of that WBS code I applied and tagged to those particular items. Let's go with floor. Of course, changing the tabs, and now we've got building 2, and the one that we were showing was building 222. Ready to go. So when you look at this, you have the capability to tag with any WBS codes that you want, have that flow over into the estimating system, and you've got that in your review and your analytics and all of your reporting as well. But of course, you're going to come into this and you may say, well, I need a little bit more detail. Looks like Elvis was doing this. Of course, this moved over here into this time frame today. Of course, that's a date stamp on it. And you'll notice here there's a ticker symbol, this blue ticker symbol right here at the upper left-hand corner of this field. Well, you may get into review mode and you may say, well, I've got to see this object. I've got to see where this originated from. Well, I can right-click, go out to the takeoff and see it right here. It's going to take me right out there. It's going to give me the details of that information, all of that within the bridge and on the plan as well. So you have an audit trail on the way over, you have an audit trail on the way back, seamlessly integrated so that there's no manual movement of quantities right here. We can go ahead and have that streamlined process that, well, increase our productivity, increase our efficiency. And really the name of the game is increasing those particular things and not losing any accuracy along the way so that we can get into more jobs. And the way things are booming right now in the industry, you know, a lot of jobs available out there for you to, of course, create estimates on, proposals on. So Let's give you some efficiencies and be able to take advantage. Let's close this out. And we'll close the bridge. A couple other things I want to jump into before we close out today. And we'll go ahead and take a look at those right now. First of all, when you get the plans, you get into a set of plans and you say, okay, I've got the detail pages that may have multiple scales on it. Not just one scale, of course, you may have multiple scales. And looking at that, some solutions have to copy that, name it by the scale. Pretty soon you've got 1, 2, 5 pages that represent the same plan page. Well, within this solution, what we can do is we can add the scale. We'll call it 1, since I already have scale over here. I would go ahead and name it by the scale it is, but in this situation, just for demonstration purposes, we won't worry about that. Now what I'll do is I'll go ahead and highlight the area that scale is applicable. Now we have not just one scale, we've got 3 scales on this page. So outside of this, we've got the original scale, and now we've got the other 2 scales inside this page specific to whatever that detail is. So no longer do you have to copy over and over and over again. We can go ahead and have as many scales on one page as we need. There's the comparative drawing, which we won't go through that process, but very easy to walk through. Now think about that though in your process. If I do a comparison, and I've already done a takeoff for those, and let's say those items will change, those objects that we've taken off change, the bridge will automatically pick up on that, update the estimate. Now, the last thing that we want to jump into here is the search mechanism. It's a patented feature, by the way, very powerful. When we go down here, what I want to look at is more of a page. I usually use electrical, and the reason why I use this page here, you may not take off. Typically, I see subcontracting that out most of the time, but I like to show this page because it's got a lot of stuff on it. And with some solutions, that buries those solutions. They can't even open up these types of pages. The other thing is it's got a lot of objects that I want to find. So you could search for any one of these A3s, X413, and we're going to search for this guy right here, which happens to be a smoke detector. Okay. Well, in this case right here, we'll go through the process of circling him. We'll call it what it is. So here's our trace list, your library that you'll work with. We'll find our smoke detector. Something I'm going to add to this too, and this is for some of you that either have been working with our system for a long time, and maybe you're thinking, gosh, I really need to get maybe either improve my database and create it, or start building on it, change it, or maybe you're in the market for purchasing another database. Now we have database developers out there that have been doing it for years, but the point of the matter is they've created the entire trace list and mapped their entire database so that you don't have to do that. So if that's something you're in the market for and looking for at this point, do talk to Alliance about that, and they can get you set up and talk to some of those individuals. But in this case, right here, smoke detector, we're going to go out and search. Lots of functionality, but here's one thing that's important, is search immediately, not in the background. Well, I want to be as effective as possible. So I want to be able to do takeoff while the eTakeoff is doing all the heavy lifting. Search. Now what it's doing is it's going to go out and search for those particular items. But while it's doing that, I'm going to go through and do some takeoff. We're done with that takeoff, so on and so forth. But we have found all of 19 of those particular smoke detectors right there. Double click. Let's go through the review process. Stretch it out a little bit so we can see the information a little bit better. What surrounds that object, which is important. Well, through my review, I noticed there's a couple that are a little bit different than the other ones. So if you think about this, if you're doing any window schedules, any door schedules, those types of things, the numbering convention will be close to being the same, but of course not exactly. They're all different doors, they're all different windows, so on and so forth. Well, think of a solution that can capture all those in a broad net, bring them into you, and go through the process I'm about to show you. Because I know eventually I'm going to need to count those. Well, in this case right here, I may even want to review them on the plan. So let's see where they're at. Okay, they're kind of spread out all over right there. I can see those. If I decided this one needed to change to one that we're going to include as a smoke detector, we could double click on it, open this up again, and let's go through the process. Save and continue. Notice it saved these there for me so I can continue to count. We'll call this an auxiliary. And finally, we're going to grab our heat detector right there and call it good. Now we've gone through the process of marking those off and represented right there. I think about the days when I used to do paper or taking off of plans, and you'd be hunched over those plans, but we'd have how many markers in our hand and the engineer rule in the other, and kind of going through and real close and trying to find these things. This minimizes that activity and can go out and find those and count all of those very, very quickly. Now, next steps. This may be existing on multiple pages. So rather than one at a time, let's go ahead and select multiple pages and go through the process. Look how effective that is. It's searching 4 pages right now for us. But again, you go through and do your takeoff while it's doing the heavy lifting. This could be 30 pages. It would take a little bit longer, of course. But in this case right here, open it up, go find those, review on the drawing, and now we can see those particular items. Pretty powerful stuff. Well, I'll go ahead and close this. I will just save and continue. Good enough. Mark them off. We're good to go. So a couple finishing comments that I'll make, and then get to the final slide and pass it over to Tim, is when you look at the solution, we want to make it easy for you to manage your database of what we call traces. So in here, rather than having to go into each individual trace, now what we can do is we can see all of the profile information of those traces very quickly, and work breakdown structures for that matter. So it gives you the opportunity to go in and manage this very easily. Now, if you're a larger company, you may need to also have some capabilities to keep people from managing those particular things as well. So we do have security, which no other solution has. There can be havoc that is raised by individuals who shouldn't be changing stuff. So what we can do is we can protect the database so that individuals can only do what they're supposed to be doing, and give you a little bit of protection as we go through the process of doing that. Couple things that set this solution aside. Well, there's tons of them, by the way. This is the most robust solution you're going to find as far as digital takeoff is concerned. Then the other thing, the highlighter, is the seamless integration with our Sage estimating solution. So with that being said, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and jump to this slide, and we'll finish off the presentation. Well, I guess what we could do is while I'm putting this slide up here for people to jot down, what we could do is open it up, Tim, and see if there's any questions, and I can answer those.